Hey, welcome back to another video from the Student Physical Therapist. In this video, I take you through my favorite hip, spine, trunk mobility exercises. And the goal is not necessarily to follow each exercise as a sequence, but to take the cues that I give and use those cues and build your own mobility practice with it. I go through each one kind of as long as it feels good. Usually that's 6 to 8 repetitions. It's about 30 seconds for each side of the body for each movement. But again, feel free to pause it. Think about the cues that I use. Think about the lengthening and opening the body that I'm talking about. And I hope you enjoy the video. We're going to start by opening up the hip adductors. So go into a half kneeling position, left knee forward. And I want you to start rocking in and out of this movement. We're going to do 6 to 8 repetitions per side. As you rock in and out of this, draw your low core in, try to feel the stretch deep through the inner thigh muscles, and add in variations here. Here I'm adding in a side body reach. And as we switch sides, same thing. You're going to start feeling this one on the left side. So as you are mobilizing this, you're going to feel it deep up into the inner thigh. The whole time I'm using the opposite hand, so here my left hand to help take me further into that movement. Again, adding in the side body reach is going to open up the oblique muscles and stretch the lateral line of the body. Next, we're going to go into a front hip stretch. So going back to the first side, left leg forward, rocking forward and back, again, holding the low core in to try to really feel it in the hip flexor. Switching sides, the same thing. I'm drawing my left oblique muscles in, using the opposite hand to sort of guide the hip forward. And that added pressure of the hand on the backside helps really push the hip forward. Feel the glute squeeze and engage as you do that. This added variation is going into the hip flexor stretch, but now we're opening up the back body by arching through the back and really lifting through the spine and the core. So I don't feel this in my back at all. I feel it, all the tension on the front side of the body, lengthening out the anterior chain. Same thing on the second side. Again, the focus is all the way from the knee up through the sternum and the chest, trying to lengthen as much as I can through the front body. Hands behind the head help support the neck. Next exercise, we're going left foot forward, drop into the hip flexor stretch on the right, and then reverse that by opening up the hamstrings on the opposite side. Each time rocking back and forth to sort of floss through the hamstrings, floss the nerve on the back side of the leg, going a little bit deeper each time. With this movement, you have the option to play around with the foot position. The more you pull your feet up towards your nose, the more mobility we're going to get sort of on the entire posterior chain of the body, so the entire backside. It's all about flossing the system with this one. And it doesn't matter how far you go, but rather it's just taking your body through this range of motion. Next is the standard cat-cow. And even though this is sort of a basic yoga position, I can't speak enough to the importance of getting the entire rounding of the spine and then the extension or the back bending motion the other way. As you do the cat-cow, pressing up, tuck your chin, pull your tailbone under, and then as you drop down, really think about pulling the shoulder blades together to feel the work through your middle back. You shouldn't feel cramping in your low back as you do the cow portion, which is extension of the spine. With the cat-cow, I often think about really pushing through the shoulder blades as much as I can. Now dropping down into a front body stretch. Again, this is opening up the anterior chain. I am rocking back and forth to really stretch out the oblique muscles, and I don't want to feel this too much in the lower back. It's all about drawing the core lightly in and lengthening through the obliques and opening up the middle back. Next is one of my favorite movements, which is just the full roll of the spine. This works on spinal flexion, which so many of us miss throughout the day. By getting this full spinal flexion, we're going to stretch out through the hamstrings. You might feel it all the way through your toes as you do that, and slowly round out of each one where you feel the core have to control segmentally your body lowering itself down. It doesn't matter how far you go, but trying to get your feet all the way overhead, down touching the ground, is a great goal to work on. But again, really controlling the core is key. Next is another lateral chain or oblique opener. By bringing your top leg over and then twisting your body into it, rocking back and forth, we're going to hit different parts of the oblique muscles. So you'll feel it as you roll in and out of this movement, that you're going to start with just the lateral chain of the obliques, and then adding in a small twist is a great way to further open up the oblique muscles. Don't be surprised if you feel some side-to-side difference here, because we are naturally asymmetrical in how we move, and the goal is just to is really to search or feel for that symmetry as you work back and forth. Again, adding big twist in here to try to, let's just say, get as much length through the lateral chain as possible. Next, we're going into a lat opener, a side body reach. So take one hand, reach it all the way across your body, and add in a rocking or sort of rhythmic rolling through the spine. The lats are huge muscles and attach way down into the low back. So by rocking your hips back and then turning your body through the movement, we're going to work on hitting several different parts of the lat muscle, and you're going to feel this all the way through the tricep, down to the lats insertion deep through the lower back. Take it as far as you can. You should not feel any pinching in your shoulder as you do this. Next, while lying on your back, you're going to draw your core in and reach as far as you can overhead, stretching left and right. This, if you add in, kind of time it with the breathing, you can really open up the diaphragm, and you can get the obliques to open up the entire lateral chain of the body, so the side body. Reach as far as you can, lengthen through the leg on the extending side. Here I'm using my opposite hand to get an added stretch by just anchoring down the movement. I view all of these as a decompression type of movements for the spine. Again, adding in kind of a deeper quad component by bringing one leg under, you're grabbing on with your opposite hand, reaching the arm up all the way overhead. This is going to stretch through the front of the hip. You can get a deeper stretch by drawing the core in and then tucking the hip under to raise and sort of lift into that movement. In the clinic, people say this is one of their favorite ways to stretch out the quad, because you can really feel the connection of the psoas muscle and the front hip flexors, how that connects into the deep core and the obliques. Here we're going into a seated spinal twist. And the biggest things I think about with this are staying tall through the spine. So really pushing your body up tall, lengthening through the spine, and that's going to isolate the stretch into the outer hip and into some of the spinal twist. Try to turn as far as you can without losing the outer hip stretch. There I'm doing a small adjustment to give myself a little bit more extension or lift up of the spine. I often think about this as turning through kind of the heart level. So by turning through the middle back and getting as much torque higher in the spine to get that full stretch. Now this one is for the piriformis muscle. So as you pull your knee up, you're going to reach across your body. So trying to bring your knee across the midline and use the opposite hand to help increase torque or increase rotation in the outer hip. These are large muscles that span kind of three-dimensionally throughout the body. So as you go across it, there's no right or wrong position, but the goal is to take your hip through a large range of motion where each time you're trying to go a little further and try to hit a little different part of the muscle at the same time. So don't view this as a right or wrong. View it as main principles and then having fun with it from there. Here we're getting into some side-to-side hamstring mobility, cross-body reaches, staying tall through the spine, and then getting a reach and lift from there. This side-to-side movement's a great way to open up the hamstrings, open up the nerve across the backside of the leg. Feel free to add in some small pulsing type of movements as you do it. That pulse is going to help you get deeper, and the whole time think about turning the hip into the movement. Next, we're going into some extensions of the back, drawing the core in as you arch backwards, using your hands to press your pelvis forward. Pressing the pelvis forward each time helps open up the deep core muscles, helps open up the hip flexors, and takes pressure off the spine as you go backwards. So often we're stuck in a forward flexed posture throughout the day, so this is a great exercise to not only strengthen the posterior chain, but open up those areas that get tight. And then from a kneeling position, just working side to side through the hips. This helps open up the lateral hips, the lateral side glute muscles, so the glute medius and glute minimus. And then lastly, we're going to finish it off with some side to side balance. And as you're going side to side, it's a single leg stability exercise. So strengthening the leg that is on the ground, focusing on maintaining your balance and holding control through that movement. So trying to have as little sway through the hips as possible.